With a spacious sound space and large sound stage, Bison Twin Tower Loudspeaker put on quite a show. I'm Jason Methvessel, and many of the products that I review for The Absolute Sound are what we consider to be options for individuals who are just entering the world of foreground music listening. These are probably a step above just entering, maybe for people who are interested in moving up from their current audio rig, whether that's a phone with earbuds or basic stereo system. While the Totem Bison Twin Tower floor-standing loudspeakers are not inexpensive at $4,000 US per pair, they do fall solidly into the next step camp when viewed on the spectrum of available loudspeakers. So stay tuned while I share what I heard when listening to the Totem Acoustics Bison Twin Tower loudspeakers. None of you know this, but my spirit animal is the American beefalo, which, if you're unaware, has the body of a bison with the teeth and tail of a beaver. So when I saw the Bison Twin Tower show up on my list for review, my interest was piqued. Being the professional reviewer that I am, I was sure not to let the piquing go past interest. Rest assured, the following review is not biased by my love of bison or beavers. Okay, with that disclosure out of the way, let's get to the task at hand. The first thing I noticed was that the Bison Twin Tower is a relatively lightweight floor stander. Now, this trait may have stuck out to me, as prior to receiving them, I had helped Chief Content Officer Tom Martin move his 180-pound Magico A5 reference loudspeakers into his new listening room. But I think objectively 43 pounds makes for a lightweight floor-standing speaker, and at just over 40 inches tall, they're certain to not overpower the aesthetic tone in whatever room you place them in, save the kitchen. The Bison Twin Tower is a ported two-way with one 1.3-inch soft dome tweeter and two 5.25-inch woofers. The speakers have a nominal impedance of 4 ohms, and Totem recommends lashing them to at least 30 watts of amplification per channel via their bi-wireable terminals. I had the Bisons mated to our Hegel H190V streaming integrated, which is rated at 150 watts per channel into 8 ohms. Vinyl playback was routed through the Hegel from a Fluence RT81 turntable, which has an integrated phono preamp, and an Audio-Technica AT95E cartridge. When I first started listening to the Bison Twin Towers, I experimented quite a bit with placement. The room that I conduct my listening in is treated and arranged in a manner that allows for sweet spot listening with speakers forming an equilateral triangle with the listening position. So most of my experimenting was curbed to adjusting the toe angle. Totem recommends 0 toe in, and I have to agree, manufacturer knows best. While there was a more cohesive image with the Bisons toed in, their point of confluence just behind the listener's head, this created an imbalance in the frequency response, heating up the treble to a point of being unlistenable. With the Bisons rotated out and firing straight forward, there was a subtle shift in the image, and the frequency response settled in much closer to flat, having a dip in the middle of the audible range, even if slight. While running this experiment, one of the tracks that I used is one that I use frequently, and that's a recording of the overture from Rameau's Zais. With the speakers toed in, there was an attention-grabbing clarity to the harpsichord, but when the piccolos came in, I was left grasping for the Hegel's remote in an attempt to quickly turn down the volume. Towing the Bisons back out, sent the harpsichord back into the arrangement, and the piccolos once again became listenable. Once my experimentation was complete, I grabbed some coffee and settled in for a listen. As I alluded to in my intro, one of the most noteworthy characteristics of the Bisons is the vast soundstage, in addition to the commodious sound space. When contemplating how to convey the sound space in my review, the space that kept coming to mind is a high school auditorium, which surprisingly works well with a lot of recordings. Of course, not all. And I wouldn't consider this a trait that's off-putting or distracting on recordings that it doesn't work with. It just kind of enhances those that it does work with. Like when I was listening to Cigarettes After Sex, the song Heavenly from their album Cry, the soundstage was so well defined and the space, well, my high school auditorium would have been an amazing venue to experience their performance at. The Bisons also artfully rendered Randall Miller's bass playing. There's a slight glow to the bottom end of the frequency range that's not missing any body and doesn't roll off until about 35 hertz. I like to lean into analogies a lot. The lows from the Bisons I liken to a robust Gouda. There's lots of flavor and it's nice and creamy. If you're more of a fan of Parmigiano Reggiano, these may not be the speakers for you. That is, if you're one who likes all the gritty, salty details, you may care to look elsewhere.
I'm Dimitri Purcell, CEO of Advanced Paris, here in Montmartre, which is such a specific and close to my heart in situ location so that we can talk about the brand itself.
I'm really a music lover, and my job in working into the hi-fi business is the result of the quest of getting a great sound.
Advanced Paris is a really human and family company. And when you are a family and you want to grow your family, and our family will be the customers, the end user, we really want to share with them our passion.
The way the Bisons render bass made for a deeply believable kick drum, which is not an easy instrument to reproduce on playback. This was most evident when listening to John Mayer's 2006 hit, Gravity. The song starts with a strong kick from Steve Jordan to set the time signature, as Larry Goldings harmoniously blankets the canvas with his Hammond B3 organ, setting the stage for John to come in and melodically transform the listener. The aforementioned slight dip in the mids was most apparent when the arrangement got a little more complex. For instance, on Pick Me Up from Gabby Barrett's Goldmine album. During the intro, Gabby stands proud of Danny Rader's banjo in the background, but when the band comes in to join them, she kind of fades back and gets a little lost. My listening notes on dynamics heated up when listening to Somebody That I Used to Know by Gautier, featuring Kimbra. The dynamic range of the Bisons allowed me to feel the tension in this duet's performance on a new level. Each artist begins their part by gently sharing their side of the story, and in a way all too familiar, this progresses into, let's say, a more passionate telling of their respective sides. The build and energy was so believable on the Bisons. Touching a bit more on sound space, repeatedly I wrote spacious when listening. A recording that especially stood out in that regard was Una Palabra from Carlos Varela's album Nubes. This track starts out bare with Carlos singing a cappella, and the Bisons had me believing I was in an old empty warehouse, staring over at Carlos in the corner, sitting with his guitar. Quite an enveloping experience. I attribute a lot of this to the way the Bisons render low-level detail. Although they may not have the low-level clarity present in speakers garnering a higher price, they still bring that detail in and allow it to color the space. Actually, that's it. I was struggling to come up with a concise descriptor for the Bisons. They're artfully and gently colored. The light coloration of these speakers works well with a lot of recordings. However, there are some earlier recordings that really lean on their mid-range detail, and when playing these recordings on the Bisons, you may be left wanting. But if you're looking for a speaker that works well on a wide variety of recordings, doesn't have any trouble filling your room with bass, and transforms the room around you, all for under $5K, look no further. The Totem Acoustics Bison Twin Tower loudspeakers reliably took the music off the speakers and transformed it, placing the music into a vast stage before my very eyes, allowing me to experience music in a whole new way. For more reviews of audio equipment, subscribe to the channel and click the bell. You can also check out our website, theabsolutesound.com, or subscribe to our magazine. Thanks for being here, and make listening fun again. Oh, one more thing. What did the buffalo say to its boy when leaving for work? Bye, son.